We should be good. Cool. All right, we're live again.
We are live. I don't know if everybody's gone.
Okay. Yep. No, I think it was probably we had you and all your stuff and the projector.
Okay, so where am I at now?
Okay. You're.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I suppose that's a reasonable cause.
This was the biggest thing. So
It's not our. It's.
Thank you.
I've also. There we go. I brought my right there. Oh, yeah.
Dustin, how's your line?
It's a little off, but it's better than it was.
Sure.
That way?
Yep, that's perfect.
I think it'd be really helpful.
Like that?
That's absolutely perfect. Yeah,
You know,
honestly, the way it was a second ago wasn't horrible. It was just, I don't know if it got bumped that first time that we went through everything, but it got way off.
Like I said, we have a whole portfolio.
Yeah, I think that was pretty perfect.
Room sizes.
Yep.
I'll run that information.
Yeah.
Or caucuses. Or states sometimes. Meeting room.
I'll keep in mind.
Okay, thanks.
So I think it's
It's
encouraged.
because there's a
So,
check.
Right.
Right, no.
That's
No.
There you go.
And
Take
yeah,
an
mine's
hour
already
and a half to get there from DC, but that stretch of road from DC south of Maryland.
So what I did
It's
is
just,
I went here.
so many people are living
Traffic in the mail and then it
I would
brings
always
up,
go for
right.
Jersey Florida, a lot of places. That area, no matter what time of the day, you know, was the worst part.
Well, the traffic is really like 270 out, you know, it's.
You hit some.
That's bad too. I know, and even, I remember.
I've got more than 4 million in my bank.
Yeah, I thought that was a great idea, and I'm glad you asked.
So anyway, that's.
Now, why is that another live link? Oh, well, this is just the.
Yeah. So like if you want to. Where you're already just, yeah, gotcha. Oh, gotcha. It's the sign?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, it's not that, on that level at all. So
Get there.
my conflicts of interest, I wanted to double check.
Is it?
I don't know if it's
No.
if it is, it would be probably.
No, dates would be.
But if not, I know it's in
I'm
the
back on.
email. So like,
Okay.
go back to your email, search for conflicts. Every so often, I'll just send it out. Yep. And it was the same.
Nice clip for that.
Just streaming live audio now.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're close.
I will see whether or not I can survive long enough to do it. I would sure like to. I would also like to sleep. I have some competing priorities there.
Madam Chair, we are at the 11-minute mark for our at ease.
Are we ready though?
Yep, we're live.
Oh, we are.
You might be sorry you asked me to do this. Pretty militant about it.
I like that. No, that's good. Okay, do we have everyone present? We are back in order, and we are in the middle of the vice chair report.
I just wanted to echo what Angela said earlier about, communication. That's important to a successful organization. Also, goal orientation and milestone setting. And I just would like to help us meet those milestones and take the pressure off of Angela and do anything else I can do to help. That's it.
All right, questions. I have a question.
Yep.
Is it your birthday?
It is.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I have a question for Madam Chair, if she will kindly present a gift from several LNC members of ours
I have to present
to our
it.
newly inducted and knighted
Let's
vice
not.
birthday present and LNC officer present.
Okay,
I want you to know, because of this president, I'm gonna feel closer to you than ever.
this is
Same.
a vice chair gift. It also worked out since it's your birthday.
Okay, is it
Alright.
mustache related?
No.
I hope
No, that's, wait a minute, I don't know.
Well, it could be, but I don't know.
Okay, I'm not even
Mustache
opening this
wax.
yet, but I know what it is.
It's definitely not mustache related.
Thank you. There's an engraving. What is this? I also read very slowly, so this codpiece was codpiece. Angel McCardle and Todd Agopian, Dustin Blankenship, Kathy Iniscavage, Connor Nippo, former alt. We gotta brag on him for quitting on us. Ugh. No, just kidding.
Oh, I know, I'm not kidding. I'll ride on it.
Miss Eiler, David Dassing, perfect. Dassling, sorry, I misspoke.
Doesn't work.
Don't
I'll
mispronounce.
do.
Pat Ford and design. What does this say? Design.
Which is designed and procured by the Duquesnes,
Okay.
engraved by an LP Washington member,
Awesome.
Burrito.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You know you have to
Oh, so
wear it.
that's-
I gotta
Oh,
wear
yeah,
it.
yeah. Where's the photo op? I'm not alone.
So that's not an Amazon product, huh?
Now I'm gonna tell you a funny story. Mr.
I
Leffert.
think
I had a
it should
very
be a
puzzled member wrote and said, since
photo?
when has
Photo.
condoms been second? Was this motion, do we have 4 sponsors? I saw 3 sponsors on a cot. All right, any other questions for Mr. Watkins?
I have a question. How am I going to get this on the plane? Are they going to
You're
let me
gonna wear
through?
Wear
Are
it.
they going to wear it? They're going to let me through?
It's a belt buckle.
Oh, there is a mustache.
Yes, that will
Throw-
that'll get you through security automatically.
It's a belt buckle.
They'll see your
Okay.
authority.
Get your comfort copies.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. That's okay, the point is confusing.
I'll
Okay,
explain.
if there's no additional questions for the vice chair, we're gonna move on to the treasurer's report.
All right. I have put out a summary for each of the first 2 months. So that is out there for everyone to read, including the public. Essentially, the downside for the year so far is revenue. We had an $85,000 month and a $75,000 month. Very low compared to what we were hoping for. I've listed out those reasons in the summary. The expense side has been extremely good. The staff has managed to essentially keep us revenue positive for these first 2 months, despite the very low revenue. So kudos to the staff for keeping the expenses down in the 75 range for the last 2 months. The 78 range, I believe, for the last 2 months. And then from a cash reserve standpoint, which is what we are focusing heavily on this year, we are sitting at 248 or so, which is about 111 more than this time last year. So cash reserve is extremely healthy. Our required cash reserve is about 80K. So we are sitting at about 3 times our required cash reserve at the moment. So very healthy from that standpoint. I'm going to spend most of my report talking about the month-to-month budget that I put out, just so we all understand why and what it is. Essentially, we have taken the revenue and the expenses that we think that we are going to get every month of the year, rather than straight lining it through. Had we straight lined it through, we would have been looking at about 150K of expenses, for example, the first 2 months each, instead of 78. Okay, we knew we weren't going to have 150K of expenses, so we budgeted lower. And in fact, they ended up going even lower than we had budgeted. But the reason you do that is so that we can have a plan as revenue materializes, that we can add more staff, or we can add more events, or we can add more ballot access spending. And so that's out there published for the membership. Everyone can look at this. It is backloaded so that we can see as revenue comes through, we can do more things, and it's laid out how we plan on doing those things. There are three main reasons we're doing this. First is to course correct when things go poorly, and that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today. So revenue is going poorly. How do we course correct? Last year we had a 3-month period where we lost about $120,000 of cash reserve because course correcting did not happen. And so that's the first point of having a month-to-month budget, so that we can look right away, figure out that something's going wrong, and figure out how we're going to fix it. The second is accountability for both the LNC and the staff. And what that looks like is we're very used to in a meeting, somebody says, Mr. Agopian, how much do we have left in so-and-so budget? And I answer with one number, $82,000 left for the year. That's not how it's going to be answered anymore. Now it'll be answered, you have $11,000 left this month, but here's the revenue situation this month. You know what I mean? And you have this much left for the year. So we'll have a much more intelligent conversation about whether we should spend $19,000 this month if only $11,000 was budgeted, even though we have $82,000 left in the year. So we'll make a conscious decision whether to take our cash reserve down, which is what you'd be doing if you overspent that monthly budget of what we're trying to accomplish. So that's where the accountability comes in. We will have to take a conscious decision. We won't accidentally lose cash reserve, which has happened in the past. The last thing, of course, is to maintain good cash management at all times. The budget has been built. Obviously, there's never going to be a month where you have the exact same revenue and the exact same expenses. Some months are built where we have a little surplus. Some months are built where we have a little deficit. It all evens out at the end. But every month is pretty close. And so that allows us to really target in and figure out if we're going to spend 20 extra this month. Are we 20 above budget this month? Do we have a plan to make that revenue up? Or do we know it's coming out of cash reserve? Or do we have a plan next month to make that revenue up? But it adds an extra layer to these discussions, which will allow us to have more intelligent discussions about spending going forward. So we're going to obviously talk more about revenue and staff reports, but I'll open it up to any questions that people have. Yes, sir.
The drop off from January to February, is that a normal seasonal thing? Do we get a lot of once a year checks?
No, I believe that was more of a Razor's Edge migration issue, which we can talk about a little more in the staff reports, and I summarized in the January. But it was about half of it was due to monthly donation timing, if I'm not mistaken, lady. And then the other half we can talk through during the staff reports.
Yeah, so before Lainey jumps in, I think we're gonna be able to answer maybe half of this during staff reports. And there's probably gonna be a portion of it that we discussed during executive session. And I think when we go into executive session, we wanna be mindful that there are gonna be things that come up that need to stay in executive session, and things that also we're gonna be like, actually, we can move that out. And so we might wanna think about ratifying, or, with a caveat some way, and our secretary can help us with parliamentary procedure on how we would explain those things as we come out to make them public. Some of it needs to be sorted out privately, and I'm okay with sharing it publicly after we do that. And some of it also may come up throughout additional reports. It's a complex conversation that's gonna be scattered throughout our meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yes,
was
sir.
just gonna supplement, we're about to go through a ton of detail on revenue, so I don't mean to ask a ton of questions, but around the seasonality, there's nuanced answers for each area of our business.
So is it most appropriate to save the questions on the revenue issues for staff report?
I would suggest, and Lady's going to offer me the opportunity to speak on any issues. So you'll get my comments during that point as well. Yes.
So just clarifying that we have an annual budget that's controlled by the body. And so what we're not modifying, I just want to make sure mainly to clear and everybody else, that we're not modifying that budget. Really, this is more of a forecast of projected spending that we try to conform to
in order to make sure that the budget, we meet the budget by the end of the year. Is that accurate?
Excellent question. I'm glad you asked it. So the budget that we approve and the budget that is dictated by the policy manual's 10% rule is the annual budget that we have all approved already. We are allowed to spend more than what's in the monthly budget. We're allowed to spend dramatically less than what's in the monthly budget. There's no penalty or upside to doing either of those. It is I would call it a projection based on what we do in December. So even as we learn new things, the month-to-month budget will not change unless we make an official amendment to the budget, and then we will be forced to change the month-to-month budget to adhere to it. Okay, but the month-to-month budget is primarily directional so that we can make sure that we don't get too far behind in one area or too far ahead in another.
So really, what you're attempting to accomplish with the monthly budgets is to align with the revenue that comes in on a month-to-month basis. So less in absolute dollar terms and more in relative to revenues in the month. Is that
somewhat what I'm basically doing is running this as a business would. So as a business, we know that we tend to get more revenue of a certain type at certain types of the year. In addition, we know that the goals that we put in place on January 1st will not fully pan out until later in the year. So those goals will then cause different results in November than they will in January. So we are projecting all of that out into this budget. And that's what I'm saying. Like if some of those goals do not happen and revenue is having a shortfall, then the expenses in the monthly budget will also need to be cut accordingly. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Any other questions for our treasurer? Okay, if there's none, we're going on to the next agenda item, which is the secretary's report.
Second. Can't seem to find it. Having a slow connection for some reason. Anyone else having connection problems?
I had to refresh refresh the overall OneNote in order to get it to
Okay,
come
give me
back
one
in.
moment then, please. Okay, here we go.
Would it be helpful if we turned off our OneNotes on our screens and
No.
just followed it?
No,
there?
it just happens sometimes. I do have a couple motions to come out at the end, but some things that I had wanted to highlight. I had hoped to have the secretary's manual that we just never had in the party completed by this meeting, but some other issues had come up. My next target date is next time, but it is a work in progress. I'll be happy to share with anyone who wants to see it. I've got up to the portion where I'm talking about convention duty, so it is almost completed. I do ask that everybody review in my report committee membership changes since last report, and also committee appointments that are still remaining in case some just haven't been communicated to me. So if these are your committees and you say, oh, it says you still need to elect a chair, but we did, if you guys can let me know that, that would be super appreciated. So I do have a couple motions to make. The first motion, which is up on the screen in green, at the request of the 2022 Credential Committee Chair Susan Hogarth, I move to amend the delegate list, which is attached as an exhibit to the 2022 convention minutes, to add the name of Brandon Slayton as further confirmed as an attending delegate by the then ACLP Chair Emily Goldberg. An Arizona member had asked me to amend it. I can't amend the Credential Committee report, so I got with Chair Susan Hogarth, who said that is correct. Brandon's name should have been on that report. So in order to make our records complete, I said I would need to ask the LNC for permission to amend those convention minutes to add Mr. Slayton's name. So I do make that motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have? Yes. It is. Yeah. Okay, any further discussion of this motion? Do we need a roll call vote?
No, it's a minor.
Yeah. Okay, any objection? Going once, going twice. Okay, hearing no objection, the motion passes.
Okay, my second motion would be to move to approve version 1 of the LNC and EC minutes that were dated February 5th, 2023. I had put them up on the list a couple weeks ago, just figured I would move to approve them. At this meeting, there were no corrections offered.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve version 1 of the LNC and EC minutes from February 5th. Any discussion? You all read them. Lying liars. Any objection? Okay, hearing no objection, going once, going twice, a motion passes, those minutes are approved. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
And it just, if there's that's all I have, but I'm open to any questions that anyone may have.
Any questions for our secretary? If there's none, we're gonna go to our next agenda item, which is staff reports and social media committee reports.
All right, and to do that, we're gonna do a quick screen share, change your HDMI. You can probably.
I have, you need this plugged in?
Yes, and then
There you
we're
go.
gonna do a quick step that you take out. Use this seconds. We will be using it up here. So,
You let me know when.
awesome.
And this is a longer cord, so.
So I think with this one, hey, Andy, would you mind making sure that we're doing this the right way?
Yep.
Here?
Nope.
Okay. And while we're doing that, today you're going to be hearing from both me, Andy, and Drew from staff, as well as Todd mentioned a couple of comments from the wings if that is relevant at the time. And if you want to follow along, a lot of what our presentation is going to cover today is a lot of details on financials. And just to make sure you can not only visualize what's on the screen, as well as see those financials, feel free to check your inbox where you can access those things on your laptop. And we can also project anything as we go. Yesterday was a really great conversation where we were able to sit down with some of you who came in a bit early to discuss some questions. And it was really, really rich discussion, but what was clear was that it's nice to have things tangible to be able to look at. So we've taken the numbers that are just released this morning by Mr. Hagopian and updated this presentation so it has all the February financials in here as well. So with that, I'm going to jump in to our presentation. And before I jump headlong into our I want to give both Andy Bukovich and Drew Ria a chance to introduce themselves and say what they do for the team. Obviously, I'm your executive director, but Drew and Andy both work extremely hard and they're here representing staff. So I'd love to give them a quick chance to share their role. They're going to be presenting with me. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves? If anyone here hasn't met you yet.
I am Andy Bukovich. My title is CTO. I am basically taking point on all of the technical efforts that we oversee and tools that we use and making sure that we have a cohesive approach, that software is meeting business needs, and that we're not overpaying for things that we don't need to.
My name is Drew Ria. I'm a growth manager on national staff. I mainly handle our email appeals process, working on the fundraising team. also do some membership stuff. And we're going to get into this in a little bit, but I also serve as our Scrum Master on national staff, which we're excited to share some details to you all about.
Awesome. And with that, we're going to jump in today. I am a nerd, so this is going to be a treat because we are not only going to unpack a whole bunch of stuff about how our business works, but we're going to be able to get into a ton of your questions. And I hope you'll find that the Excel that we've provided is really helpful in giving you an opportunity to ask questions. Here's how we'd like to arrange this today. We've built in a bunch of structured moments where we can ask questions on specific topics, but we know there's going to be a ton of enthusiasm. So we've prepared a really high-level overview, which is intended to give like an inventory of what's going on with the business, and then a ton of time for questions at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to write them down, and we'll prompt you throughout if there's anything we want to talk about, so we can be really great at time management. And Mr. Bowen, are you timekeeping for us as well?
I am, yes.
Awesome. Would you mind just letting me know so I can keep here how long we are into just with setup right now?
Yeah, you're only 3 minutes in. You have 90 minutes on the schedule, and just as a matter, we're only about 8 to 10 minutes behind on the
awesome.
agenda. So we're in good shape.
We'll keep an eye on basically 10:40 is our start time. So with that, we're going to jump in. So last time we were all together in Austin, I spoke to you a bit about what I had observed as a new member of the team. And my main message was that we are so full of energy and creativity as a movement that the number one thing that we can be doing as an organization is focusing. And particularly, I love the turn of phrase that our number one priority is priorities. So as we talk today, we're going to be giving you a high-level overview, not only of what we've accomplished to make sure we've been doing a better job to focus and prioritize, but really what we have learned along that process and what it sets us up to do moving forward. That is still the number one message that I have for the organization, and it's what we on staff are focusing on doing on a daily basis. As a quick refresher, part of the goal of focus is just to really simplify what it is that we're doing and make sure that all of our conversations, all of our metrics, and all of our goals are oriented on clear things that each person can attack in their daily activities. And Drew, do you mind shutting that door for us so we can have a little bit more noise level here? So one more time, when I joined on, we had a couple of different departments, and this was a first step towards having a more structured org chart that was organized by my predecessor, Tyler, where he had organized a couple of different departments. What we've done is actually structure the team so that everybody anchors, no matter what department they're into one of two big groups. So the first is growth and operations, and it's really simple. This team is here to help us grow efficiently. And second, we have political impact, and this team is here to help us spark freedom. We're here as a political organization to make a difference, and anyone who anchors on this team, their primary objective is to accomplish that. And then those who are in growth and operations, their primary objective is to fuel the ability to make political impact. So these are pretty enduring goals, and they have not changed for us. And we are going to be talking a bit how we're going to be making things more concrete as we look at our Q2 roadmap, a term you'll learn more about later. But I'm going to read these off just for the benefit of everyone so we can reorient what these two departments do on a daily basis. So first, growth and operations. They grow our revenue and membership. That's the number one thing everyone there on the team is there to do. But in order to do that, we have a bunch of operational and technical tasks that we need in order to make that happen. So the second charter of the team is to optimize our tools and digital strategy. And then, of course, we're in a highly regulated industry. Compliance is very important. Staying out of jail, very important. Making sure we're solvent, very important. We also maintain all of our financial, legal, administrative operations. And then on the other side of the house, the political impact team, they understand the needs of our members and leaders. They empower and provide structure to our stakeholders, and they strategize and coordinate our political projects. And neither team can do it without the other. That political impact team, we can't really grow unless they're taking action to fuel growth and excitement with the stuff that we're doing. I think Angela's example of the rally will come up again and again today as a way we've been able to do that. We're doing this on a daily basis through a number of activities. Really, political impact isn't just about delivering, but also making sure it fuels our growth. And then on the flip side, our growth and operations team, we're not just here to make money. We're not just here to fund ourselves as an operation. We're really here to provide infrastructure and make sure those political impact projects can actually get pulled off and get fundraised for. We've added one other component of the business since last time, and that's just an acknowledgement that admin and management is so much of what we do. Probably the most for me in my role as executive director, and I know many of you also participate in this as well, but also for anyone on our leadership team. So we are, just sort of documenting as we're tracking kind of what we spend our time on, how much time that we spend on this. Tomorrow, we're going to go into a whole detailed discussion around talent and how we can be investing in each of these 3 areas. But I hope this kind of gives a quick level set on what it is we're doing in general. So that said, what we're hoping to talk to you today about is really just 3 basic concepts. Number 1, let's go through each of our revenue drivers and how our membership structure works so that we're all on the same page of the products and services we offer as a business. Second, we want to talk to you about the magic of project management and how it's really helped us as a staff. And as we talk about some of the pieces of revenue, this is going to be one of the biggest things that we can do, not only within staff, with our volunteers, sourcing content and ideas from members, and working with all of you and anyone who's a part of the committee to be able to take our organization to the next level and really bring home this concept of prioritization and focus. And then finally, we want to make that all tangible. So we're going to talk about our roadmap for Q2. And just as a level set, we of course work on a calendar year, so Q1 ends March 31st. We're a bit early in the year to be looking at Q1 data, which is why we're going to show progress bars for everything in terms of our quarterly goals. Q2 ends June 30th. So pretty much everything we're talking about today is oriented about how we excel between now and June 30. So with that, I'm going to jump into some revenue drivers and break down a little bit of what we're going to be able to talk about today in terms of revenue. So I know that from our conversation yesterday that everyone really appreciates Todd's updates and our ability to break down our monthly budget, but also our annual budget into bite-sized content where you can understand like how the business is doing. What we're going to also do today is break down a bit of the inventory of how things are organized. So really quick, I want to do some level setting on how the budget is set up. We already know that we've passed a balanced budget and we've spent a lot of time talking about expenses, and today we're going to really focus on revenue. If you look at the way the accounting structure is set up, it's not readily apparent that our business really has 2 halves to it, and I hope this will help us frame all the ways that we're attacking different strategies moving forward. The first part of the business is really composed of 2 big buckets. They total up to $1.1 million and 63% of what we're trying to do this year. Really, the first one is monthly subscriptions. As we're trying to find ways that we invest in fundraising today, and it pays us not only today, but in the future, we are trying to shift more and more of the business into monthly subscriptions. It's a really easy, reliable number that you can count on to make sure that you are bringing in revenue reliably. And it's a great way to measure your success because a month is a month is a month. Some months are slightly shorter or longer than each other, but it's a really concrete, discrete moment in time where we can double check what it is that we're bringing in. This is formally been called pledge revenue if you've been involved with LNC for a long time. But in general, you'll notice that $700,000 of what we're trying to bring in this year is shifting and really excelling at monthly subscriptions. And that's all we are looking at in that line item. And next, we have memberships and other subscriptions. So we're trying to kind of categorize into that bucket another $400,000, and that again essentially brings us 63% of the business. So when we're talking today, I think what you'll notice is that one piece of our business is performing in a certain way, memberships, and the other piece is performing a completely different way. That second one is project-based. So you can think of this like Kickstarter. A lot of what we do at the LP is selling sort of this membership and subscription type of donation to our members, or we're selling hope, and we're getting really generic about what it is that we value. We talk a lot about our issues and our platform, but when it comes to fundraising, what really succeeds is when we get concrete and we talk about specific projects that we are funding. And when you group all of that together, you'll notice that whether it's for ballot access or historical preservation or a general fund where we get a little bit more creative and we have some flexibility that we architected into our budget, all of that really accrues to projects. So those are the 2 halves of our business, and I hope that does a bit of a level set. Next, I want to really break down a couple of numbers so that we understand what what they mean and how they relate to revenue, because really we track a variety of metrics in our business. The two that can get the most tangled up together are revenue and donations and memberships. They're actually two completely different buckets of things. And our bylaws guide the way to how we can understand what these metrics are. So let me go through what this is. And I've had a lot of great conversations with our secretary, saying thank you to Ms. Carlos for helping us get to a place where we're going to be able to track this much better as a business. So for a quick refresher, what makes you a member of the National Libertarian Party is if you have at any one time, without withdrawing it, signed a member statement. This is online. Usually you are providing some kind of donation when you're doing this, but there is no actual financial requirement for anyone to become a member. You simply check this box, fill this out. This has been going on for decades at the party, somewhere I think since 1973 or 1974, and it has a long storied history of the party. That number is in the hundreds of thousands, and we are constantly seeing it go up because people rarely drop off or withdraw their membership. When I think what most people colloquially refer to as membership, what they really mean is a sustaining member. And this is a term that comes from our bylaws. It's been noted in a lot of our report as ESMs, but really what this is anyone who has done two things. Number one, sign that member statement, and two, in the past 365 days, they have handed us $25. So this kind of functions like an active user from other businesses. So it's kind of showing people who are still engaged, and they not only are handing us money, but they're willing to have signed up to say, yes, I'm a member of the Libertarian Party, and I'm signing this member statement that I oppose force in achieving my political ends. And then finally, we have something called a life member in our bylaws, colloquially referred to as a lifetime membership. And this is the same exact structure, requires two things. You sign that member statement and you've donated $1,500 in the last 365 days. And when you do that, it actually makes you a sustaining member for life. So these are how all three of the different types of membership work. What we're going to be talking about today is both memberships and subscription revenue, and they're different. And so I just think it's really important as we're trying to figure out where revenue is coming from, how we can improve or where we're falling short. We all have this similar vocabulary. And I'll just mention that we still have the opportunity to improve that word subscription, to make it a better word. We're going to use that word subscription today. I want to quickly pause here and ask if there's any questions about membership. If there's anything else, this is a great time to just tackle that. Hopefully it's straightforward. Yes.
If I remember correctly, there was some discussion about the first look on the website if somebody goes to actually join.
Yes.
And I believe the default was a one-time membership. We discussed actually changing that default to sustaining membership, but a recurring payment, which I happen to be in favor of. There's nothing better than recurring income.
Yes.
It's the best way to handle it. Have we done that on the website, or have we talked about doing that? Is that now the default?
That's a great question. So yes, we have done that in two places. And by the way, streamlining the website is still very much on the roadmap. Here's what we've done so far, because it was low-hanging fruit. There's two places that you can easily access donations in our upper right-hand corner of our website, and that's join and donate. In both the join and donate location, you now are defaulted to select monthly, and you can also select one time or annual, right? In fact, we'll talk about this in a second, but we've made a gamble that monthly is our primary objective. All of the industry data that Todd, I, and the team can find shows that this is the best way to not only keep us accountable to giving members value monthly and keep us hungry to want them to come back, but that they tend to stick around for a lot longer than if you have some kind of annual charge that people cancel because it looks really high. So to add some nuance to that question, though, I think even when I was presenting last time, these are basic standards that we want to have go to monthly recurring revenue. I don't think I truly understood exactly how membership worked and what's the difference between a membership, as the bylaws define it, as opposed to what we call a bronze or a gold or a basic or a premium membership. There's all these products that we offer that aren't truly membership, which is why we should make sure that we're being super clear to customers about what that looks like, but definitely clear amongst ourselves as we're analyzing why we are bringing money or losing money. Does that make sense? Cool. So any other questions on membership structure? Yes.
I would like to just have an ask. You explained how membership works probably clearer than I've heard anybody in a long, long time explain how membership works. I would love to see this as a membership guide on the website, because when we are like for state affiliates and so forth, when we're trying to explain as we get into convention time, right, you need to be a sustaining member. You need to be, and there are all these things that always get talked about as we get into convention. Having that as a guide, exactly as you explained it, would instantly answer like 99% of all membership questions as affiliates start to drive towards convention.
I'm so happy to hear that. We'd be happy to put this not only in our website in a more sort of membership report style fashion, but also in just like simple human terms, so you know what you're purchasing when you're investing with us. And big thanks to Ms. Harlows. It's been a long journey working together, trying to get to the bottom of what this is. So my members on the call are feeling comfortable. I did not understand this. My colloquial understanding was, oh, if you're a sustaining member or a BSM, which is what I thought it was, then that means you get to be a delegate at national. That's not how it works. There's all kinds of nuances, and we can do better explaining it. At a minimum, I hope this is a good foundation. And it will also explain something really important about ways that we might be cannibalizing our business in a good way if we're going about doing this. So thank you for that, and let's make sure we get that on the website. That said, I want to now shift into what are the types of memberships that we offer, so we can understand how each of those businesses are doing. So really in our budget, you'll notice that there's 2 GL codes. And again, if you're like me and didn't know what a GL code was until recently, it just stands for General Ledger, and it means a line item on our budget. We voted on these annually, but Todd and I recently released through our December mindset what the month-to-month expectation was back when we had all passed this in December. With this amount, that first line item, I'm calling it monthly subscriptions here. I believe it's called recurring revenue on our GL code on the balance sheet. Again, that is an amount that totals up to $700,000. And here's how we are doing on that business right now. We've earned $95.5 thousand on that business, and we've got $54.5K to go. The products that happen in that business are simply monthly subscriptions, no matter what the price is, no matter whether we have a processing fee associated with them. So currently on the website, there's about 6 ways that you can give us money here. We're in the process of updating that. So, and I'll get to that a little bit later in the presentation, but all you need to know is we charge you once a month. You can cancel at any time. People rarely do, and we're providing you a value. You're essentially giving us a reliable donation. If anyone's listening on the phone, the biggest way you can make a difference, especially if you're giving on the lower end of the spectrum, is to give us a monthly subscription, because it allows us to rely on your revenue to build all the things that we do for you. And Todd, did you want to jump for that?
Just want to make sure everyone's reading this correctly. That does not say we're 54,500 behind. It says we have to get 54,500 prior to March 31st to hit Q1's goal.
Thank you.
So we're supposed to be 2/3 of the way at this point.
And actually with that, I'm just gonna kind of motion here so everyone can see exactly what Todd said. What I hope we can give a view on, and my apologies, looks like on your PowerPoint it'll be crystal clear, but up here it's a little bit faint. Our thermometer goes to about here for Q1, because we're actually in year 3 of 4 of our cycle, which is the hardest year to fundraise, surprisingly. I actually think if we do our job, year 3 should be our 2nd best year, or our 3rd best year of the 4-year cycle. But certainly the driest quarter of all 16 quarters in the cycle is the one we're in right now. And that's why this little goal that we're trying to hit is actually here on the thermometer. I just wanted to provide this for scale. What the February dotted line is showing is through this arbitrary deadline, which is February 28th, we had put in our monthly breakdown that we wanted to get to that dotted line. So I hope what you're seeing is, okay, we're pretty close actually when it comes to where we want to be. We're a little bit far off, but in the grand scheme of things, we're trying to accomplish 54.45K more this quarter through March 31st. So that's how to interpret all the numbers you're going to see today. Does anyone have any questions about that visual? Again, easier to see on your PowerPoint. Sorry for the glare there. All right, so the main thing I want everyone to understand is just like what products go into this, because when we understand why is the number low, why is the number high, you can understand this a bit more. So what goes in here is monthly subscriptions of any price, no matter what experimental pricing we do, with this throughout the year. The second batch is a much more of a catch-all, and this is really important to understand for the question about seasonality earlier. I forget who asked it. When we look at our historical trends, we'll notice big peaks of things and troughs. Sometimes it's repeated, sometimes it's not. Todd did some excellent analysis with the numbers that he had available to him, which were much more at an aggregate scale, to see that there's a lot of seasonality to our business. And now that we've learned more about it, we can explain to you as staff like why that is. We tend to see a 13-month trend, right? So hold on to that in the back of your mind, and then let me explain which products go into this bucket. First is annual subscriptions. Those are in there because we wanted to make sure it's glaringly obvious to us as a scoreboard how we are doing with monthly subscriptions, since this is what we want to invest in our business. So annual subscriptions go in this bucket. Next, we have life memberships, and this means if somebody was to purchase outright a lifetime membership for $1,500, we would take all of that revenue and put it into this line item. If someone was to just qualify for a life membership through an incremental donation, as one of you approached me today that you want to do, so you know who you are. I hope you make the push to lifetime this weekend. We would actually just put that donation into another fund, right? So really this is able to show us, hey, these are people who just purchased it outright, $1,500 on the spot. Next, similar concept, same membership. If someone wants to just purchase for $25, which is the current price, divided by the bylaws, then this would also go in here along with any processing fees. And then finally, we have a small number of joint memberships, one actually with the state of New Mexico. So all of those, that revenue goes into this bucket here. And the reason why it's in this bucket is so that we can understand the nature of the business is that people are generically supporting the LP. They're proud to be a member, they're proud to be associated with us, and they're proud to be just fueling the mission of the overall organization. Yes, Mr. Ford.
Excuse me. Where do we stand on the complete rollout of the affiliate program for memberships on the site? You know, if you can give us a little snapshot, how well the rollout has gone, what we received, kind of just an overview.
Yeah, let me make sure I understand that. So we've got a number of initiatives at staff to really invest in member value, and we're looking at communication channels that are virtual to do that. When you say the affiliate program, could you just be a little more specific so I can address that?
Well, just my understanding was that in the run-up to Reno, we talked about reinstituting and, if you will, expanding. You know, we one of the benefits of Rage Against the War and all these different programs we're doing is that it's giving us new access to new influencers and giving them the ability to profit by, high-level real estate position on their website.
That's a great question. I'd love to come back to that a little bit later. And Drew, I know you're kind of mentally making notes of any questions. Let's come back to that when we talk about different questions. What you're talking about here, just so if anyone else was confused like me, we've got affiliate support. That's something that we do to support our state and local affiliates. There's also a marketing tactic called affiliate marketing, sometimes this thing called the affiliate partner program, and that's what you're referring to, right? Okay, great. So that's a tactic we would use to sell stuff like this. And actually, it's a really good point that the number one thing that we wanted to do, thank you for this segue, as we are understanding the business and cleaning up our budget, is to understand what is it that we're selling, right? And what I'm really proud to report is one of the biggest successes that we're happy to share with you this weekend is that some areas we have been growing, some areas we have been shrinking, some areas we've been stagnating, but what this budget is doing and what this effort is doing is shining a big old spotlight on why, and it allows us to take action, which is great. And we want to be measuring ourselves monthly and quarterly so we know how to attack each piece of the business. So what I hope this illustrates is kind of the 5 simple products that we have in this part of the business. And what we've really been doing is thinking about everything that we offer kind of like a big, very, very cluttered garage, right? Or a big cluttered closet. We're going into that closet, we're taking everything out that we can, and then we're putting back in things that not only we understand, but also are beneficial to us. And what we're going to see as we are swapping those or putting those items back into our closet is that we've got some stuff that's missing, and we can be intentional about what we go fill in with the closet. So hopefully this gives a framework of the overview here. Yes.
I have a question for you about the sustaining
Yeah.
memberships.
Mhm.
Obviously February only has, and I don't know how our system handles this. When somebody renews automatically for the year, or they re-up for the year,
Mhm.
but I guess it wouldn't matter. Never mind. I'm asking a question. I'm asking a question that doesn't matter.
You know what's funny? I think your
It's really more for the monthly
I think
subscriptions.
you're driving at a real thing though.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
okay,
the monthly
so-
subscriptions that come through on the 30th and the 31st. Are they not reflected in the February number for our monthly subscriptions because they hit in March?
It's a great question. This just came up, and I'm going to tee up
That's what it
Annie to be able to comment on this as well. So we noticed this, not even a problem, but this,
Yeah,
this
they hit on the first or
structure
the
for two
second.
things, right? General theme of what staff is doing for you. We are trying to document what it is that we do, so at least A, we understand it. B, we have a lot of people who come and go in our business, mostly volunteers. It's really high turn when it comes to volunteers. The way we're gonna be able to empower everyone is if we write stuff down and we're really clear about how stuff works. So recently we wondered this ourselves. We found out that the way people are charged today is every 30 days. So let's say you purchased a subscription, aka like you're pledging, on the 31st of January, you wouldn't be charged till March 2nd. So we missed your revenue in February, right?
Okay.
And that's not a silver bullet. Doesn't mean, we
No.
solved everything, but you're already looking at early March numbers and they're looking a lot better,
Right,
right?
so there could be carryover from, but that was my
Exactly.
question. Is there carryover from
Exactly.
February that's not showing in the numbers?
Yeah.
That's gonna help elevate the number in March.
Totally. So great example of how writing all this down and figuring it out has helped us. We talked as a team, both our fundraising director, Andy, our CTO, and I, and we're like, how could we actually make this more standardized? At this time, our goal isn't like smooth daily revenue every day. That doesn't matter to us. We want to make sure that we're not missing people. So what we might do is actually go to a system where your first donation comes the second you give it to us because thank you. We want to get you membership perks ASAP. But then subsequently it will come in, let's say the 26th of the month for the next month. Now we as staff know, all right, we had a drop, but we have now 35 days to go fix it as opposed to like scattered, like trying to analyze, exactly how we're doing with all of that. So hope that answers the question.
Yeah,
because it is
bottom,
really
bottom
important.
line is money's still there. It's not missing.
Mhm.
It's more of a broad question for I'm sure other people who are listening and watching have
Yes.
this question. And I wanted to make sure that question was asked so people aren't freaking out. Oh my God, we lost membership revenue in February. Why?
Mhm.
And I just want them to understand that the money's there. It just hit a couple days later.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think Mrs. Y, sorry, how do you?
That's okay. I'll take
Yes.
So to your point about life memberships, if somebody pays the $1,500, obviously it goes in the annual. But if they are paying, how is it treated if they are paying monthly? Does that go in monthly subscriptions?
It's a great question. Let me give an example. So let's say you were a monthly pledger and you were donating, just to make our math really easy, $100 a month. That would mean you'd accrue up to $1,200, right? Let's just say for whatever reason in December, you also paid $400 just for a donation if you're buying a ticket to some donation style event. That now accrues to $1,500. Where we would reflect that revenue is your $100 for your monthly subscription. That would go right here in monthly subscription, and that helps us track that business every month, not just the final month you qualify to be lifetime, but also your last donation, $400. It would go into our next bucket, which is general fundraising. And why we want to do it that way is just so we can track what's going on. Separately, we would also track life memberships, when they happen and how they happen. So I think that we don't have this metric available today, but I would love to understand how many of these, what percent of these happen outright? Are they an impulse buy or is it someone saves up for? What percent of them are $125 a month that someone's like systematically just chipping away at like a layaway plan? And how many of them happen by accident, right? Like that's really fascinating. And that's how we'll do the revenue, but we would separately track the membership like the moment that you become a member. Does that answer your question?
Yes. So if somebody pledges, says today, hey, I want to become a lifetime member. I'm going to pay X amount per month. And this is not exactly related here, but on the membership report, are they treated as a lifetime member?
Yes.
Now or when they pay the full amount?
That's also a great question. No, it's the moment of 1,500 when you cross that ribbon of the half marathon. Like that's when you are now a life member. Here's what is interesting. What we've learned in this process of trying to be really precise and draw things out so we understand, we realized that there's actually a very interesting way the concept of renewal is being treated. And so I'm here to tell you that we've been consistent and we've kept all of our reports consistent, but we're ready to re-envision that. And it really should be done tailored to each of these different subscriptions. Monthly subscription, it's really simple. Did you donate this month? Yes, for the first time, you're new. Did you donate last month and also this month? Great, your renewal. Did you miss? Whoops, you lapsed, right? Like, so it's really simple to do it that way. It gets a little more complicated when you have, we're confusing the issue of membership versus payment. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Dana.
I don't want to derail you. My question is membership related and
Mhm.
specific to a state within my region.
Sure.
Based on the numbers I saw this morning. I don't know if you're the person to ask for this. I know Robert's not here.
Yeah.
But I think there might be an error with Indiana's membership. They seem to have lost like 80 members in the last month. That doesn't seem real. I mean, I suppose it's possible, but they dropped from like 8 to like 14 out of the 50 states.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that is
Thank
about.
you for that question. I'm going to just make a quick statement about the numbers, and then I'm going to kick to Todd after this too. So, yes, oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, we'll go to Ms. Hartman after that. This morning, we just, so as everybody knows, we have quarterly board meetings, and I would really move the committee, if there's any way that we could time our next one to be mid-July, we can look at more true membership numbers at a time that's a little bit more feasible to be able to do this. This morning, we posted our numbers for membership and for financial reports. Something that we noticed as a result of switching over from Razor's Edge as our CRM of record into Civi CRM, our WhatsApp Shops CRM of record, is that there are some new ways that you have to measure data. So quick caveat, we've been doing everything consistently so that we can make sure that that is at least, apples to apples with the past. But we noticed some funky stuff happening with the numbers too. What the staff is doing between now and the next report is getting to the bottom of this, getting really good at how we query the data in Civi. Should be actually even easier now that it's all in a single database as opposed to having to stitch them, which is what probably had to happen in the past. But if you're noticing any discrepancies, please send them our way because that actually helps us get to the bottom of the case, of how we're making sure we measure all these things. And similarly, like I mentioned, we want to just measure what's useful to us. So if that's sustaining memberships, great. If that's renewals for monthly subscriptions, but not for life memberships, because you can't renew them, then we want to study that stuff too. Todd, did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is, yes, we caught some of what you're talking about and made a conscious decision to report apples to apples. We will be modifying the report going forward in some way, shape, or form. We'll be ultra transparent about that. But we did not feel that it would be fair to show a membership increase, by reporting a different way, even if it's more correct. So we reported apples to apples. We will now go back and try to come up with a better report and make sure that everybody understands what is changing. But definitely bring us any situations like the one you're talking about, just so that as Lainey is trying to get to the bottom of the different things that changed, we can make sure that, yes, we caught that one too.
Yeah, it seems to be isolated to, at least in my region, specifically Indiana, with the most drastic change. So there's probably something.
Which makes sense because Indiana is a heavy CRM user and those seem to be the ones that are being most affected. So.
Absolutely. And so I just say welcome all of those questions, and that's not only to everyone here, but if you're a member or more importantly, a membership director or state chair listening to us, we'd love to hear from you so we can get these numbers accurate and get them explained to Mr.
Okay, because I originally had one, but more have come up. First, I think it was Mr. McHale, it might have been Mr. Rufo, where you were talking about how the money wasn't lost, that whole conversation that involved March 2nd. I got completely lost with that, to be honest with you. Are we talking and I'm going to compare this to Patreon. I'm a YouTuber, and Patreon now it used to be like everyone would get charged on the first of the month, and now they allow you, when you become a patron of somebody, to get charged immediately. And is that what we're doing now?
Yeah.
So if they're charged now, say I was a brand new LP person, I joined right now, would I then be charged on the 11th of each month, or would it be from the 11th to the 30th and then charged again on the 1st, kind of like Patreon's doing?
It's a great question. So here's how it works today, to the best of my knowledge, and I think we should think carefully about the best way to do this. Number one goal, serve members and really serve people who want to cancel, because we want to make it clear to someone what it is you're signing up for and what you're paying for when, right? Because that's just good customer service. But two, we want to do it so that our operations allow our team to be generating revenue. We're really motivated because we're setting the numbers. So my understanding how it works today is that if you pay today, you're charged today, and then 30 days later you're charged again, and then 30 days later you're charged again. For the most part, you'll kind of stay within this, once a month, but every once in a while you might pay twice in a month. It's just because they're 30 days apart, right? So that's the current way that it's working.
Okay.
What we also should know is that historically the way that Razor's Edge worked, I believe, is that you were charged on the first of the month. So downside, imagine you paid us on the 17th, we didn't get your revenue till the next first of the month. That's a bummer. That's literally 1 month loss every single time. And as we look at our retention, it is not that long. That's something that we'll be talking about improving. Missing a month is a big deal, right? So it's first of all a good step forward by accident, or should I say by de facto, that moving all the way to City CRM, we've operationally improved that, and that we're going to see probably 1/24th improvement in revenue just from that. It won't come to pass for 24 months, but that's a good thing. What I want to clarify though is the second question. Let me just explain this as if we're talking about Netflix subscriptions, something I hope we're all really familiar with. Imagine you purchase Netflix and you sign up, I'll just use 17th of the month again. The way that when you get Netflix access might be like today. So we're essentially going to comp people from now to the end of the month, right? For what you purchased. And if you want to cancel, let's say Netflix charges you on the 26th of the month, like we're talking about doing, you would have access up until the 26th of the month, and then you wouldn't have access on the 27th. If you cancel on the 27th month, cool, you don't have to pay again in another month, but you have access for 30 more days. So really what we want to do is whatever the model is, we want to be clear to customers because like they're paying for it, it's a contract, we should be clear about it. And then two, we want to make sure that it's really precise. What's not good is like doing 7 different versions, which since we don't have it super well documented, like we don't want to run into that issue. I hope it's not happening, but it should be clear. Does that help answer your question?
No, I'm sorry. I'm still
That's all
very
right.
confused.
What I might recommend with this one is maybe we take it offline because it would be better done if I could whiteboard it or do visuals, which I won't.
No, I think I can clarify my question.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
understand the way it is right now.
Mhm.
That my question was, are we looking to move to something different? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so it's my understanding we were on kind of the hybrid system with Razor's Edge and City because they were both in all different ways. Moving to City did a de facto change. It was not a conscious effort, though I think it's a step in the right direction. And what we're thinking about is a conscious change to a new system, and as is customary.
When you say system, you mean manner of operating,
Yes,
not
thank you.
CRM system.
Right, thank you for that.
Nicely said.
This is great. So thank you. And when I say moving to a new system, lowercase s, it just means operationally that we might set up the algorithm to charge.
Reconfigure Civi to charge the way we want to. And
Exactly.
so
There you go.
And really, the only purpose of that would be like, how can we make it better, clear to people, like if I'm paying, how long my member. Let me take a way more tangible example than Netflix. With Netflix, if you cancel, you can't watch Netflix anymore. What really matters here is being able to be a delegate, right? We don't want anyone to be ever unclear when they are not a delegate and when they are. So the way that we get really, really crisp about all this stuff is helpful to the user. And just being able to access any other perks that are coming down the pipe. So that's the ambition, and we would communicate that to membership before we change it because it's a contract and you want to let them know what they're paying for. Yeah.
On joint memberships, I'm assuming that's the state with the national. So Florida was really interested. I'm still really interested in getting on that program.
Yeah.
The only concern that we had was we're an FTC filing organization, and so there's a little bit of concern between how it's processed, how we get the data, how we're in compliance, how we receive the money, because we have 2 separate accounts, one's for federal, one's for state, so that way we can report with the state and the feds independently. So we're just trying to figure out how we go on the program, but how can we also dodge the red tape and make it.
Yes, I was going to go to Andy, yeah.
So the same way that you do your normal reporting on contacts in City, right? The way that these split donations appear is that it's on the same contact, just with some revenue going to national and some revenue going to state. So all the information you normally use is already there. You just have to, you do lookups based off that revenue type. So you get your total, and then you can click into each one of those individual donations to get anything you might need about that person to get to the FEC. It's all being logged through Civi still, so all of the FEC information that National has to file, you'll have access to the state.
So let's say somebody does a joint, say they go to elk.org, they select Florida. So when we get the money, is that going to be from the Libertarian? Is that from Stripe? or is that for the Libertarian National Committee?
So you can the way a lot of states are doing it is through their own payment processor, where the customer just gets charged once, but then that's actually going to 2 different Stripe accounts in the background. That's the preferred way to do it because it gives you a lot more independence. But it is totally possible if states don't want to mess around with that.
And that's what we would want to do because that way we can just file with the Division of Elections in Florida and not file with the FEC.
Yep.
Which is how we like it.
Yep.
So if we can figure that out, we'd love to get on that program.
Awesome. Yeah, we can. We're making more and more progress on making that easier for people every day. So awesome.
Great, and I think Lois had another question.
Yeah, because I actually, that was my first one. I had 2 others. One of these should be pretty quick, and perhaps I saw something that was still in workshopping phase. I know we're trying to move to monthly subscriptions, which I agree with, and the $5 a month works out to $60 a year, which is better for us, and it's a nice chunk it's doable for people, $5 a month at Starbucks coffee, whatever it might be. But I saw somewhere, and again, maybe this was just workshopping, where that $60 a month was going to be called like a basic membership. I would highly, I know the staff has discretion on that, so I'm not trying to step on your toes. I would highly discourage not using that terminology because I think with our bylaws, our basic is the $25.
It's called a sustaining membership, and I think this will help. That which we call memberships today in the category of things like premium or gold or bronze.
Those are all
silver,
gone, you know.
They're
out of the policy
They're out of
manual.
the policy manual, but they're for sale on the website.
Okay.
Those are getting conflated in the same exact row with something called a basic membership, which is this other thing, which is like, it's a sustaining membership. It's being shown in a row with, they're 2 separate things. I think this is where a lot of confusion comes from. So as we've been even trying to design our website, we actually had to dig down into understanding what the product was. And now it's much easier for us to sell it because we understand that. And I think your point is well taken that whatever we're going to do with pricing and naming, we have to honor and understand the any misunderstandings of the past, right? Of what people thought all this was called. And so I hope that now that we understand it, we can not only explain it in simple human terms, but also dress it up marketing wise so that it's clear what it is and you're not getting confused.
Yeah, and that's why it was taken out of the policy manual. It was a hot mess.
Yes, thank you so much for doing that, by the way. That's great.
The third thing, and this one's going to be a little bit tougher, and maybe this is a later discussion. The chair's not here, but the vice chair can cut me off if this is an executive session thing or whatever. I understand that some of members are super concerned with our revenue being down. And there's a lot of members that are very concerned in good faith, and then there are some who are just being mean, in my opinion. This is speaking towards the members that are very concerned in good faith. Like timelines on getting this up, plans for getting it up, and I understand that there was a moving over from Razor's Edge to City fully. I don't think members understand how that lost us some money, but also just me personally, that's now been a reason for 2 months. I think that's reached its expiration date. I don't think we can use that as a reason anymore. I'm like trying to put this very diplomatically, but I think we need to move past, and I'm not saying scapegoating in the negative way, like illegitimate, but I'm just saying I think, Razor's Edge needs to become part of our distant memory. And I hope next month we're not saying again, oh, it's because of Razor's Edge, because I think members have lost their tolerance for that.
Yes, so let me break that down. That's actually exactly what I wanted to talk about.
I hope I
So-
said that diplomatically.
No, absolutely. No, thank you for that. And by the way, this is good. We want to be improving our business, and we're not foolish or blind. If we're seeing numbers go down, we want that to go up. What I do want to remind everyone is when essentially if we are going through and taking over this new garage with a bunch of stuff in it, in order to find the value, it does take some time, right, to understand what it is you have before you can have a garage sale. So that's a bit of what's going on. That said, let's go through why numbers are up or down, because there's actually some uptrends and some downtrends that are getting put together in all of these different line items. So first of all, you can see over here that this business actually looks pretty healthy, and that's because it is, except for one issue. So I believe in December, we were in the high 40,000s range, and in this, for a first month of January, we went up to over $50,000 in revenue. That's growth. That means that we're actually getting new monthly subscriptions and or retaining a higher percentage of monthly subscriptions, good on us. Here's what happened with Razor's Edge. Razor's Edge had a couple of donations, or not a couple, a substantial amount of donations which were permanently married to the Razor's Edge tool. So a vote to move off of it and a migration off of it meant that our team was tasked with porting over as many of those donations and donors as possible into Civi CRM. So essentially they were a regularly paying monthly donor, and since we've moved off Razor's Edge, we can no longer charge them because we don't have access to their credit card. We have them as a prospect, so we know who they are, we can reach them. We've been trying to reach them. But the team essentially started off with $144,000 of annual revenue that it had set to lose, and we were able to bring that down. What we're looking at now, that we have about $4,000 a month that is still yet unreclaimed, meaning it's sort of it's lost due to this technical choice. We are continuing to try to win that back, but we're reaching diminishing marginal returns. So right now, that sort of recapture, or not even recapture, that transferal sort of activity was led by a couple of people on the team. We're getting new people involved, so not only have fresh eyes and fresh voices calling people on the phone, but I think if there's interest in anyone here, as Kieran and you mentioned yesterday, in trying to help us with that, that'd be great. So what happened in January, so people can understand the numbers, is that we were able to charge everyone one last time who was signed up to be a loyal subscriber, and we were able to charge in January. That was the last time we were able to do it because we lost access to Razor's Edge December 31st. So what people are going to see is essentially a $4,000 subtraction happening in the month of February and every subsequent month. So that's what that vote did to move from Razor's Edge to Civi. It's not that Civi's bad, it's that Razor's Edge had attached monthly subscriptions. Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, so basically, we don't store credit cards. So if we wanted to, when we get off of Razor's Edge, anybody that we want to retain their subscription, we have to convince them to sign back up in Civi. So when we say that like this is a Razor's Edge migration issue, we're not talking about like missing data or things like that are causing the issue. It's just that we knowingly lost the ability to charge these people's credit cards, and there is still a percentage of them that we have not been able to reconvince.
Yes. And so as a great point, this is essentially a de facto cancellation that we caused with a bunch of credit cards, and we cannot get those back. So we did as hard as we could on that. And I know that's come as a surprise to some board members. I was not here when this Razor's Edge migration was pitched, but that's what we started off with $144,000, got it down to a $44,000 loss. Each month is a new opportunity to win that back. And we might even be able to talk to some of these prospects and say, hey, were you aware that your membership had lapsed? Out of the goodness of your heart, would you like to help us make up some revenue that you haven't been giving us? Who knows? Some of them might say yes. So that's an option too, but that's kind of the projection if we did nothing. I hope that kind of layers things out. Yes.
Okay, and you've said this, I'm saying this more, I'm kind of posturing, to be honest with you, a bit, just so that members that are listening understand to correct a narrative that's going around. Because the narrative that's going around is that we did a big dip in members because someone didn't like some tweet and they got mad and they called National and said, I want to cancel my subscription. I mean, that is the social media, I call it fan fiction, that's going around. So it's the fan fiction. We have all kinds of fan fiction about all of us. It's really quite fascinating, but I suggest you don't read it. It's not good. But so really what happened is we had to bite the bullet in order to commit fully to Civi. And that inevitably meant, because we don't store credit cards, that some people's memberships were dropped. It wasn't their choice. It just happened.
Yeah, we canceled on that.
Right. So we're trying to regain them, but it isn't that, oh my God, there was an awful tweet from some state party or from National, and they called up and canceled. This was a very passive thing that happened.
Yes, it's a passive cancellation.
I just want that
initiated by
clear
us.
to
Yes.
correct the narrative. And none of it's acceptable. Obviously, we want this money. I'm not trying to make an excuse. I'm never happy. We could be 100,000 ahead and I would still be telling you I'm not happy. That's just how I am. But I just want accurate information out there.
I love the hunger. We should stay hungry. And so I'm going to quickly comment on I want to say there's other areas where this migration is impacting us, but in a different way. But what I just want to say, on no uncertain terms, We failed to find any evidence of a significant active cancellation campaigns. Let me repeat that one more time. A lot of our cancellations seem to be passive or as a function of hindered operations, which is in our power to correct, around suggesting that people renew their other annual businesses, right, which we'll talk about in a second here, or that one type of sort of systemic error. It's not an error, but what's the word for it? It's a one-time thing that would happen with Razor's Edge. We're living with the consequences, but it's a one style of dip right there. So I hope that's super clear. I'm not seeing a big trend of cancellations. In fact, we're seeing growth, and it is counteracting like this drop. So you just can't see it when you look at the net. I think Kathy, and then.
But if you look at the budget, you can see it because the recurring monthly revenue line is under in February by $4,500. So
Yes.
we're talking about 4,400 or whatever per month that is in this pocket of expenses. So you can see it on the budget.
Right. It's harder to see in a thermometer. And then, sorry, yes, Angela.
We need to think about it carefully the next time we fiddle around with tools. We need to do that carefully. I know that we felt like we consulted staff last time, but what really happened is we asked staff a couple of quick questions. That's not a careful consult. We need to look at literally what are the ramifications of going off of this tool? What are the financial implications? What are the membership implications? You know, what is the definition of whatever? You know, like what does it mean to lose someone's data? Are we just losing their credit card information? Are we losing everything? I don't think that we did that in the past, and I think we need to be responsible enough to be willing to look at these sort of things critically, even if we don't like the answers.
Absolutely. And I hope what we're doing here is building a great foundation by which we really understand every last dime of why something is predictable, why it's not predictable, how much human ability is involved in making it happen, how much technical ability is involved in making it happen.
And when we're approaching these kinds of technical problems, I really would encourage you guys to, if you feel like I am giving you jargon or there's like some aspect of what I'm explaining that doesn't quite make sense, this stuff all seems very arcane, but these concepts are all ultimately pretty simple and stuff that I'm confident that we can all wrap our head around. Ask me questions until you feel like you actually comprehend what's going on, because I'm very confident in my ability to explain things in such a way that it's not just, oh, we have to do the X thing, which causes the Y thing, and it's all over everybody's heads. We can talk about things in terms of what they're doing in such a way that everybody gets all the pieces involved. So, and that will make it so that you don't have to just rely on staff. You can actually kind of have an understanding of where we're going. So I shouldn't have to just rely on me. I should be able to explain to you what's going on and convince you that it's the right thing. So.
Absolutely. And that goes double not only for tech industry terms, but also business or marketing or terms like we've been hashing out today. And so I know we're spending a lot of time in it. Let me quickly summarize just this top line because I want to get to this one, which is even more important and also has to do with Razor's Edge. Essentially what we're seeing is that this business is going up. It's growing slowly. I think we can grow it even more aggressively. And we need some things in place in order to do that, which we'll talk about later in the presentation. But in general, we have a $150,000 goal for the quarter, and we are not likely to achieve it because of the drop-off. It's a systemic problematic thing. We've already achieved some diminishing marginal returns, so I just want to call it like it is. That's a function of that Razor's Edge migration. You better believe we're going to get creative in the next 20 days here to see what we can do. That said, the overall way to get this back up is actually just with new growth and like increasing our upsell and increasing our retention. So we're going to be doing both those things, but I hope everyone's clear on the net drop, and then it's about to be projected $44,000 for the whole year, right? So hopefully that is clear. We're doing our best to reclaim it in as many creative ways as possible. Creativity takes a little time, so we'll work on that. Let me jump to the second one because this is even more important as well. So the Razor's Edge migration also did a couple of things. Our staff was used to using Razor's Edge, and there were several human and technical processes that were either automated or just like on a schedule that a human did in order to encourage renewals. So for example, an annual subscription where we have your credit card, that's just going to renew. It doesn't really matter if it's in severe Razor's Edge. However, what about a sustaining membership? Now that we've gone through this, that just means 365 days after you qualified, you're now not a sustaining member anymore, and we can bring in an additional $25 in revenue for you. Except, let's think about this. It's kind of complicated. It's not like a single credit card where you're swiping it and we can talk to you. You might be $14 under the threshold, and we need now to get you up $15 more into the sustaining membership, where we're charging you for sustaining membership, but then it's very, very, very complicated. I think it's a cool idea the way we have it set up in the bylaws. So not suggesting we change it. We can't anyway. But what is happening is that the state of our data in City and the state of our automations, that doesn't get ported over when you do Razor's Edge. You have to rebuild that. So Annie's going to talk about this in a second. I'll just give a brief preview. The Razor's Edge migration was set to have some milestones complete November 1st, some milestones set to complete December 1st, and some December 31. At this point, we're really damn close to having the data portion of that ported over. There's some minor things that are, not mission critical that are not in. Here's what's not done with the Razor's Edge migration. The functionality and the training that our national team had the operational capability to do in Razor's Edge has not been fully ported over into City. And that's where we actually want to apply even more creativity than this original point, is so that we can get that back up and running. Not only because we will see a flood of revenue from November, December, January, February, because we'll be turning that engine back on, but also because that's the way we're going to be able to optimize moving forward. So I hope that gives a sense of the two big ways that Razor's Edge is changing our business just as a function of the migration. And again, that has a lot to do with a switch from one CRM or two CRMs to one CRM, as opposed to like it's a product called Razor's Edge or it's a product called City CRM. So hope that illustrates things. You can see clearly this business is, not all the way up, but kind of on pace to get pretty close to the mark. This one's behind. That's why we're going to be putting a lot of energy into that in March. And that is much more achievable because it's really just turning the floodgates on to a bunch of renewal lifecycle marketing tactics. So hope that explains some things there. Todd, is there anything you want to add to all of this on the membership side of the house?
No, just to reiterate what Angela said, it's usually not as easy as I think we all talked about in July. Razor's Edge saved us $60,000. It clearly is on pace to costing us $48,000 plus the annual memberships that were affected and could be continued to be affected. So chances are we lost money on the Razor's Edge migration unless we change things, which is what the staff is working on now. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yes.
And then the second thing is when we came up with the monthly budget, a lot of this was unknown at the time because the Razor's Edge migration was supposed to be done in a few weeks after that, and it was not. So this is 2 months later. We're now catching this stuff. So that's a little bit of why the monthly budget doesn't reflect the Razor's Edge stuff. To Karen Ann's point, in January we did say that this was a 2-month problem, and we now have identified all the things that are going wrong. Whether or not they all get fixed and implemented in March is probably a no, but things are starting to get fixed and implemented.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to add 2 quick comments and then answer some questions if that's okay. One, it doesn't mean that this was a poor decision necessarily to move over. Investing in a single CRM, simplicity is actually a really, really good thing. So we don't have to do complicated API or human stitching. I'll be honest, this is all done by hand, by Excel, by email, by hand. Not good, right? From the past, I'm confident there's a ton of user error or missed revenue just by having 2 systems. Being on one, that gives us a lot of opportunity. And Annie and I have been working really hard to make sure we understand how that system is architected and are incorporating that into revenue activities. The second is, I just want to leave everyone with the expectation set that we're going to do our best to get revenue back in March. This is going to be a sustained effort over many years. So the time horizon we know whether this switch was worth it or not is going to be probably over 1 to 2 years, not like the month of March, right, or the month of April. So we hope everyone we've articulated sort of the problem scape, and then now we're going to go attack it. Yes, Mr.
Based, Todd, off of what you just said, you said that there was a work that was supposed to be done a couple weeks after the decision that didn't get done. Is that what helped cause this?
I apologize. What I meant was Razor's Edge migration was supposed to be completed December 31st.
But it wasn't.
So it was not. We knew that at the time that we were doing the month-by-month budget. What we did not know is what we found out as we were completing the migration, which were these things that basically turned off.
And what I would offer, just to help simplify this conversation, if I heard that, I would want to know how that was possible. I think we've got some time in executive session tomorrow. We can speak a little more freely about some postmortems about how this happened. And there's certainly 360-degree ways that we can all improve in case we ever embark on another significant infrastructural change. By that, I mean, there's so many different ways that, I don't want you to read into what an infrastructure change means. It just means that if you're changing your operations, you're going to have impact. And let's all remember, I know we want the party to grow. We want it to grow fast. We should keep stay hungry and keep on ourselves, be improving weekly, monthly, quarterly. But slowing down to make investments is a good thing, especially when you look at our cash position, right? Like, we are not losing money, and we went down a tiny bit here in February, but really what we're doing is cleaning house, getting organized, and enjoying a new garage, and then put 2 cars in it later. We only have 1 car right now. That's kind of how we're functioning right now. And I do want to just do a quick time check. We're now into the presentation. 30 minutes more to go. We're happy to continue, but I want to make sure we get to the rest of this.
You've got plenty more to you?
Yeah, can I take one more question? And move on?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, if you still have more by the time expires, I'll make the motion to extend time.
Yeah.
This is super important.
Yes.
And again, excuse me if I miss this, and maybe it's not appropriate for this meeting, but is there going to be some kind of goals timeframe of getting the numbers up? I'm going to respectfully disagree on one point.
Sure.
I don't think we're doing the membership any favors by calling it a tiny dip. I don't think it was a tiny dip.
That's a good correction.
And I think people are going to pick up on this and be like,
it's a 10% dip, so it's pretty big, right? The amount of
yeah.
impact
So
this has. Yeah.
I'd like us just to be really accurate and honest. I'm not saying you were being dishonest. I mean, amongst the board ourselves, to be critical ourselves and want to do better. But are we going to have some kind of plan? Because I think that's what members want to see. This is a goal, and if we don't hit it, we're going to self-evaluate right then and see what we can do. And maybe that's not something we're going to be putting into place today, but
Absolutely. So there's a ton of stuff that we're doing. In fact, we don't have time to go through all of it today because, and also a lot of it's very boring, just do the work stuff. And I want to get to Andy's portion because he's going to be able to talk about some systemic things we're doing. No, this is all great. And I think Karen is right that this really matters. And I think what I hope we can do today is to understand, is this a problem in demand or is this a problem in operations, right? Really, far more the latter. We are seeing signals of demand going up. And I'm going to talk about that even more so in the next half of this revenue discussion. But yes, we do need to be fixing this because cash on hand and cash in the bank is a fact. And we need to be improving that so that we can do the good that we want to do with the organization. But when it comes to leading indicators of success, I hope what we're trying to help address around questions or speculation out in the ether is this a result of a mass exodus from the party? No, it is not. We are certainly seeing changes in membership. We are certainly seeing changes in donations and subscriptions. But really what we have is a team familiarizing itself with a completely new way of doing things. New because going from 2 to 1 is still very new, right? And actually, Raider's Edge was the CRM of record. We're moving way more into having, there's substantial change. It's not like a 50% change. It was maybe 80% change of how we did things. So, and keep in mind, you have a ton of new stuff, right? We're trying to learn how all this stuff works. So I hope that clarifies. Yes.
I just wanted to say, we have 15 minutes until lunch. You'll have 10 minutes after that. You might want to think about how much more time you need because I will happily second Ms. Harlow's motion to extend time.
Thank you.
So that's where we're at.
And thanks so much, Ruth. And then on that note, I know we had 90 minutes, but we were starting late. How does that matter?
We're about, at this point, we're about 10 to 15 minutes behind.
Okay.
Without
So-
the extension, without any extension.
Got it. Great. So I'd be happy to make some recommendations on how we could extend, just so we can address any questions that you have. Let me jump into some other stuff so we can proceed, and then let's do this. Let's hold any revenue questions through the end, unless I direct you to. Not because we don't want them, just so that we can give time to questions as opposed to our presentation. You don't know if you want to hear or not. So with that, let's look over to the second half of our business. And really, this is the main point I want everyone to understand today. Our life cycle and our membership operations, we got that. Like, this is a really straightforward thing. The party has a lot of energy. Really, it's a simple game of understanding what people want in terms of membership perks, pricing, asking them to renew their credit card at the right time. This is really simple. the task that we have before us as an organization that's much more challenging and also much more exciting because it involves creativity is getting this side of the business up. And that's the project-based donations. So let me quickly explain the other pieces of our business, and I won't go through them in great detail, but I want to get to some slides which show you in stark contrast why one is performing and one is not. The next budget or bucket we have in our budget is general fundraising, right? And really, this is our catch-all. If we don't have an obvious place to put something, it goes into this bucket. But here's the types of things that go into it. General one-time donation. So if you just give the party $100, it goes in here. Or if you're accruing towards that lifetime or sustaining without some kind of active product purchase, they would go in here by default. Political project funding. So if we're asking for a piece of revenue that doesn't fall into these other things we're about to talk to, this is where that kind of money would go. Event tickets, not including convention, merch, and branded materials. Quick comment on that, and we should do a deep dive on our store another time. We are making a conscious decision as staff to really fix the profitability of the store. It has been kind of designed to sell at cost. So if we produce material for $10, we might charge $10 for it. If we're having a merch store, we want to have some of those materials be profitable, and that would be like a sweatshirt or some kind of piece of swag that you would want to own. What we don't want to do is penalize our affiliates who are simply trying to get rack cards or tabling material or things like that. Those we can decide what the right profit margin is, but right now we're planning to keep things exactly as they are, do it at cost or just constant, however that works. So hopefully that is a quick comment just to make sure people understand. And I'm sure actually Todd and I are going to want to talk about this on the expense side in a different meeting, but that is how general fundraising works. Everything else is pretty much a line item version of that in a dedicated area. Our ballot access, candidate support, affiliate support, and service preservation, those are sort of earmarked funds, and then building fund and legal fund are legally separated different bank accounts, and they're untouchable for purposes other than that. But what you're seeing here is essentially our project-based donations. I'm going to quickly flip over to show, imagine we're just looking percent to goal, how each of these businesses are doing. We went through monthly recurring and other memberships, and they're about 64% of the way where we want to get to goal. However, if you look at these other pieces, they're not as far along. So general fundraising, you can see a pretty big gap there. Ballot access is at 2% of goal, right? Candidate support, we actually did very well there, but the staff is sort of doing fundraising based on generic calls to action. And we're seeing that it shows. So what we're finding, and Drew is going to talk about this in a moment, is that as we get more concrete, people donate more. That's not surprising, right? If you were donating to a Kickstarter that was like, we want to have a great, cooking tool, it'll be awesome, right? Like, we value speed in the kitchen. You're like, okay, that's great. Versus, hey, this is an amazing new gizmo. Here's what it does. We need this exact amount. So a little bit of that comes from the marketing and sales techniques that we're using, but really what I want all of us to internalize is we're selling products and we're putting out impact. And what gets people excited is the ability to put out, to see impact happening. One other very important point that needs to be said about revenue today is we're not just down in this membership side of the business, we're down here. It's coming from something else. We, just as a quick reminder, and we can go into the details on this when we do in the postmortem. The point of this is not to get into this today, but it should just be said so everyone understands the lurking variable. When we invested in the Rage Against the War Machine rally, this organization fundraised off of that and helped build up our war chest, no pun intended, for fighting foreign policy affairs that we really care about. We made a donation to a 501c4 organization that we sponsored, and many volunteers from our ecosystem participating in making that event a success. When it comes to the branding of that event, people may not know or care that there are two separate organizations. When it comes to the revenue, though, that event raised $101,000. Sorry, how much is it, Angela?
It's $111,000.
111. Thank you. The public website says 101. So $111,000. I'm going to update my math on the fly here. Let's just assume that the libertarian ecosystem versus the People Party ecosystem was donating half of that. That's $56,000 in revenue that doesn't appear in our budget, right? I don't think we can sit here and assume that it would have all been donated to the Libertarian Party if we didn't do this rally. In fact, I think this generated a ton of demand. And if we're looking for how we're going to really move this forward, like I said, membership, lifecycle marketing, that's the boring stuff. the meat of what we're doing as an organization is driving political change in America. And when we do exciting stuff like that, we get energy and we attract potentially donors that we never would have. But what I want to make sure is clear is that all the expenses came out of this 501c4 and all of the revenue went into that 501c4. And if you're just looking at profitability, that shouldn't matter to you as a business, right? If you're looking at revenue, there's a big dip. And it's certainly a piece of that is because of the way that was arranged. So I think what this board should think about is as we're doing coalitions moving forward and as we're partnering, and it also gets into things like the regional candidate trainings. Let's say all the regions are going to raise the money for their training and then they're going to make a donation to us. Piece of that's going to show up in our revenue. What if we raise all the money and then we donate to them? Like there's going to be mechanics whenever we do revenue splits that will show up here. So let's just make sure we all understand the metrics. We don't worry about metrics that are not indicating, or sorry, if there's a demand signal, that's what we should be looking at. And if there's not, we need to be making sure we're being honest with ourselves. And so in closing here, I hope what I'm not articulating is, oh, if the rally was run by the LP, this all would go away. Nope, we've articulated a bunch of areas where we are able to improve moving forward and actually doing well right now. But I hope that's really clear to us and members in terms of the percentage. So one more point, and then I'm going to get to your question there, Kathy, is let's break down this business into some buckets. It's not arranged this way on the budget, but this is kind of the way the revenue moves. This business, we look at kind of the month of February 28th or February 28th in the moment in the quarter, we are about 64% of the way to our thermometer for Q1. And February 28th happens on the 65th percent of the month. Wow, we're pretty close to being on track, and we should keep that momentum going. Project-based, we're not doing so well, and so we should all reflect how can we do that, and that involves not only having great vision on what we're going to do to drive political change, making sure we're keeping the pedal to the metal, and then making sure that we're communicating all the way from the person who has the idea to the people who are doing the fundraising, and getting our members excited about this too, so that they understand how they can help us move the numbers up if they want to be a part of that. So hope that helps illustrate a really important point of the business. I'm going to hand it off to Drew in a second, unless Kathy, you had a question.
I do have one question. The Razor's Edge migration, does that affect the general fundraising line? I know that we've heard a lot about how it affects kind of the subscription and the monthly and all of that, but how does that impact general fundraising?
It's a great question. I'm going to say something and I'm going to allow Annie to follow up with it so that this doesn't open a can of worms. What we are finding with City CRM is that it's not super well documented. So I am not able, what I hope to have been able to tell you with all kinds of metrics today on our forecast. So Todd and I have shared an ambition that we want to set goals and targets. We want to have predictions like as a forecast. It is quite difficult to use our current system, again, not inherently because of the software of City CRM, but the documentation available to us, a new team, right? So I'm new, Andy's new, our fundraising director's new, pretty much everyone at National, we got a lot of newness going on, right? So having things written down matters. So what I know is the things that I've told you about membership, because those are simple areas of business. We've done a lot of investigation on them. There's probably going to be other lurking things that we don't know about. What I suspect is that actually the takeaway we should take from this low number is that we should just be doing more political impact. And also the rally is a sizable chunk that went to a different organization. Not a problem, by the way, because again, expenses didn't come out of us from a cash perspective. It's just that the revenue is artificially low. So does that answer your question on general fundraising?
Yes.
Yeah. I just had a general point to kind of tie in. First, thank you for this. This is really helpful. I've heard multiple times, and I think this will be for your benefit in the future. We'll come back and talk about that later. I think having a formal parking lot would be really beneficial for these future presentations, because we are kind of all over the place and we do kind of throw a lot of things from a lot of different places at you. And I think doing that would help assure and keep us on track and remember to come back, as well as you all, for future meetings.
I love it. And actually, big thank you to Drew, who is currently standing here without a pen and paper in his hand. He's doing that during the rest of this meeting. I'm sure he was, oh my gosh, this idea rocks. So Drew is actually writing these down. So thank you. And if anyone ever wants to volunteer to help us while we're standing up, we'd love that. Yes, Angela.
I want to do our next big
event. I want to do a Bitcoin thing. There's a demand for it, which is why I want to do it through the LP. Lainey and I have got to have the ability to be nimble, move quickly, and do everything without a ton of questions. Because one of the reasons the rally was so successful is because Nick Brana and I made decisions like this. I didn't have to run it by a bunch of people. I was just like, boom, go. So-and-so wants to do the thing. Were there a couple of screw-ups? Yeah. But we raised $110,000, and even MSNBC ran a good point. Like, dude, like, you're not going to bat 1,000. We came pretty damn close. So I want to recreate that within the party to drive revenue, but just keep in mind that when we go for it, like, yeah, we're going to be able to answer questions within reason, but I can't like slow down things. Like I got to just like go. So let's do that again. Let's recreate it with it.
And what I want to be crystal clear about, not that Angela, you misunderstood, but for anyone listening, the revenue going to another organization is not inherently a screw up in any way. It's a lurking variable. If you don't understand it, you're going to be wrong about what's going on with demand in the libertarian ecosystem. So I hope that's crystal clear. Let's go to Mr. Ford and then do a quick time check.
Real quickly, someone once taught me that a critical part of any event is the ability to A, increase membership, and B, raise money. So with regard to the Rage Against the War Machine, I know there's some legal issues here, but what were we able to accomplish in terms of the Libertarian Party's physical presence at the event in the form of a booth in both the collection? And B, are we able to, and I don't know the answer to this, are we able to scrape the Rage Against the War Machine C4 list for any type of data? Is that legal?
So those are questions for me. Yes. The legalities on this is not a oh geez, we got to really walk the line. I already talked to the FEC about it. I have the email list. We got 4,500 contacts that the party can have. And the agreement that I had with Nick Brana is that both of our organizations may have this list. So it was done to benefit us. Party presence, the Maryland LP had a booth there, and we did a ton of interviews. Almost all the media went to the national party. So it was fairly like split. And the Maryland LP also had national literature at their booth. So we had like a very like a local funnel for membership. What other question? Did you have another one?
No, just in terms of, and this is maybe a Drew question. When's our first attempt to actually reach out to those folks specifically? Thank you for coming to the Rage Against the War Machine. This is an effort we want to continue, blah, blah, blah. Can you send us $10? When?
That'll be a question for staff when they're ready.
Okay.
Yes, awesome. What I would recommend is that Angela's mentioned that she's coalescing her internal 501c4 postmortem notes so that the staff and the board and just as holistically as an organization, we can do a dedicated postmortem. We've prepared ROI analysis from the teeny picture that we have so that we can look at that. I think though we should have this as a holistic discussion so that we can take next steps, analyze what went well, maybe what could have been better, or just strategically if we would do it this way again. I just do hope that everyone goes in eyes wide open that if we're going to do a coalition like this again in a similar style, you're going to see lower revenue and not necessarily for the worse, right? Just because it goes somewhere else. So I know there's a lot of questions. I want to make sure I'm timing everything correctly. I'm happy to talk infinitely today. Just want to make sure we get to at least some of the stuff we wrote down. How are we doing on time?
All right, so it is noon. We are to break for lunch. You have 10 additional minutes left in your presentation to conform to the original agenda.
Okay.
So it would be appropriate this time for somebody to make a motion or two.
Is lunch being brought in or are we on our own for lunch?
Brought in.
I don't. We are.
So is that ready? Do we have to break now or?
They said it would be ready by noon. I can check if you want me to see like if there's like time.
Yeah, because I don't want to screw them up.
Yeah.
Well, while he's checking, and pardon me, I'm so sorry for the coughing. I'm going to take more cough medicine. A question I had on the fundraising. I know we have a whole new generation of people coming into the party that are, and I brought this up with LP News, I'm the fuddy-duddy. I know we're relying a lot now and we're having a really good return on investment through these email donations, but we have some big donors in this party that are not going to donate through email. And are we going to start doing some direct mail marketing again? I think we went too far in the other direction. eliminating that entirely. Maybe we were doing too much direct mail before, but is there maybe a way to bring some of that back?
Absolutely. So we have already started 3 direct mail pieces. Again, I don't want this to sound like an excuse or like an issue. I just want everyone to understand the lay of the land. Up until about 2 weeks ago, we had no idea who was a member in the system and who was not. And it's not because we didn't know, it's because the system was not architected to provide that as a heuristic. We've been working to brute force it and find a way that we can identify who's a member again. This very much affects our ability to do direct mail as a channel for renewal, for example. And then second, I think there is a really productive discussion we can be having about cooperation and collaboration between committees and staff, right? So keep in mind you have the new staff, and we do our best to sell things generically. We know pretty clearly from the numbers that concrete does better. So if we're going to put our money's worth into direct mail, we want that to be something super concrete that's really compelling. And frankly, there's several areas of our business where we're just not sure, what is going on with that piece of the business. And we want to work with you all in whatever committee that you're in, with whatever leadership you're having with political impact, where we can be driving that concrete message in direct mail. So what we've done is we've sat down and we've triaged everything that we can make extremely compelling, where we're sort of raising for the initiative, where it's very clear what it is we're going to do. And I think what we can all here do to improve our ability to tap into direct mail, and just every channel, is to keep getting concrete about what it is we want to deliver. Because saying you want to raise for blah, blah, blah support versus like, we're going to do this thing, it costs this much, we can use this much from you, that does so much better. And direct mail is very expensive, so you don't want to waste your money unless you are going to get a return on that. We can afford to have a couple emails that flop, so I hope that is clear. And big takeaway, direct mail is an excellent channel, especially for a couple of groups. People who have a birth year that's a little bit further back, we know that. And 2, people who donate from direct mail before, we know it's a proven channel for them. So what we will be doing, and a great area that we've been able to slice expenses, and we will continue to do, is cutting out people that are getting 6 letters from us when we could send them 2 emails, right? Like that's something that we don't want to do, but we do want to email, or we do want to mail the right letters to the right people who are going to be high return. And we've done some analysis to know that there's a lot of goodness that comes when we do it that way. So I hope that answers that question. Todd, anything you want to add to that?
Lunch is being brought in. Lunch it's about to start being brought into this room.
Your point's well taken. We spent over $50,000 in total fundraising expense last year through this point.
Yeah.
We've spent less than, I think it's right around 20 so far this year. So we've spent significantly less, about $23,000 less on direct mail specifically last year versus this year. So we definitely have cut it to almost zero. Staff has been doing a great job of trying to figure out how to re-implement that in the right way, because there's only a portion of our membership that really has a high ROI on that. So what we're trying to do is build the direct mail back up in the most ROI-based fashion, and I have really high confidence that we'll be able to do that.
Well, because there's also the Legacy Libertarians program. I mean, not to be morbid or anything, but the people who prefer direct mail are the older persons who are now trying to look at their legacy and when they pass on, if to whether or not they'll consider a bequest to the party. And we used to really pursue that. And I'd like to see that again. I mean, again, not to be morbid, I put down the LP. If me and Wayne go at the same time, the LP is getting my life insurance policy. And I think, because I don't have children, I think we need to start thinking of things like that, pursuing the Legacy Libertarians.
Let me get specific about the.
Don't go murdering me and Wayne for my life insurance policy.
Let me get specific about the 3 campaigns we're going to do so people have even more confidence. This is around the corner. I actually just talked to a member in Pennsylvania who wants to give a lifetime membership because she's so excited about direct mail. And I personally promised her we're going to earmark that donation for direct mail. And whether she does or not, all 3 of these are coming out soon. So ballot access performs extraordinarily well in direct mail. We have very concrete numbers, Todd and I, on how this performs. And ballot access, this ain't our first rodeo, so we know how to sell that. We would love to partner with Ballot Access Committee, and I don't put it on the spot, but I hope everyone here is taking a message. If you have a concrete way that we can put more content on that direct mail, it's going to perform better, but we're able to proceed without any concrete details. I'm also sure this weekend's gonna be full of all exciting things that we can put into this mail. But also, let's not wait for quarterly meetings to be able to know what's going on with committees. Like, we should be able to put concrete stuff in there no matter what. But ballot access is coming. Another one that's really great is building fund. We at staff, we run the operations on that, so we know some really compelling things we can put in there, and that performs well. And then finally, renewal, right? So we use text, we use email. Drew's a badass at this, and we also want to use direct mail. That's been turned off for a few months as a result of the migration. So those are the 3 campaigns that are already in the works. And just keep in mind, you will not see revenue from that for 1 to 2 months because direct mail is very slow. So keep that in mind. And yes.
Yeah, I would say, I just before we get too far away from
Yeah.
Mr. Ford's point that he was making that I wanted to comment on a while back. You and I had a wonderful conversation about life cycle marketing yesterday. So this kind of relates to that, and this is not a direct criticism of anyone, but it's just something for us to keep in mind moving forward. Mr. Ford mentioned what a great experience he had and how pumped up he was when he left that event. And one of the things that we know when we're looking at the life cycle of a potential donor is if you hold an event, the time to capture a donation from that event is in the immediacy after that event. And I think at this point, I mean, we're still probably going to capture some from that with that list, but we missed a critical time juncture to capture those additional donations.
You're talking
From
about
the
work?
rally.
Yes, actually,
Right.
that's a fantastic point. And by the way, I'm everyone here can think of things better to do at the rally. It was kind of a new experiment, and
Right.
a lot of things went well, but like it was the first one that this party is running a long time. So I totally agree with you. And in fact, if anyone here is getting really excited about these kinds of conversations, and you're like, I know the word life cycle marketing, I know what that is, it excites me. Carrie Eiler is going to be working with us on some awesome analytics stuff in her capacity as just a volunteer. If you're interested in it, we would love your assistance. What really helps is dedicated members who are able to, with some kind of sustained effort, work for a few months on improving a life cycle because you have enough time to watch it work weekly or monthly, as opposed to throwing in an idea. Ideas are welcome, but that really helps. So Justin, I'll be hitting you up for that, and anyone else wants to join, please hit me up as well. And I just want to make sure I'm managing all the questions in time well. Rich, do you want to jump in with that?
No.
Or around the question? Okay. And I'm forgetting who had their hand raised first then.
I think Donna.
Please go ahead.
I'm going to make this real quick because I think it's just a subject that we should park in a lot. Primarily, Todd, this is with you, is that if we're going to be doing more 501c4 or outside entity collaboration discussions, what we're going to see impacted is that our budget is going to end up looking lower on both numbers, kind of like a market cap perspective, when how the organization is doing with its coalitions is more than what we're reflecting historically. And so I really think we need to figure out a way of incorporating the proceeds and the energy that we're spending in those coalitions into our budgetary and reporting process, because otherwise it's going to look like the Libertarian Party is getting smaller. It's not getting less efficient, it's just getting smaller as a pure market cap because the energy is being directed in these other areas that we still think fulfills our mission, but isn't being incorporated into the, how we view ourselves financially.
And I would just challenge us. My standpoint on that is going to be that we should not let it affect the budget. We should construct our partnerships in a way that we can do it with less work and less money, which I think we can do. So we just need to be very careful on which ones of those we take on and understand that if that's going to take X amount of staff hours away, that we need to have more of an email heavy staff month, trying to get donations through something that takes less staff hours. So we need to be very prescriptive on how we deal with it. But I would certainly not be in favor of doing 6 more events at the expense of $300,000 to the party. That's not a win for us, no matter how many email addresses we get. That's my opinion, one person's opinion.
And quick comment on that. I think Angela might have left the room, but I'm sure if she's here, she would agree. This was a quick and dirty execution to get a vision off the ground very quickly. And I think the lesson we should take from this, in addition to like, how are we going to do things strategically with our team, is how can we get much scrappier? Coalitioning is a skill. We should have a system for it. In fact, Angela and I are excited to announce in a couple of days here that this is something that we not only want to talk about internally, but help our affiliates and help other people who are interested in the strategy of coalitioning work on. So if we were doing that, we should just be very strategic about, is this something that we want to keep revenue in-house, or not. It sounds like obviously Todd, your position is really clear, but it's just something everyone should be eyes wide open in as we make more strategy decisions. Let me come back to questions.
Yeah, I'll preface my question with just a statement that I do not want to be one of the two major parties. However, I will copy the methods that work. Okay, one of the things you haven't talked about, something I'd like to hear about at lunch, is personal contact. You have not discussed personal contact at all. You're talking about big donors. That's in my opinion, not even direct mail is going to get your big donors. They want to hear from us.
Absolutely.
So personal contact is a very important aspect that I have not heard anything about so far.
It's a great point, and let me address that because I also know that we're doing this too little. So it's not in this presentation, but we do have a full-time staffer. All they do is talk on the phone to donors, right? So that is getting reflected. Unfortunately, we are not in a position to know the aggregate results of that individual because of the state that Sippy is in right now. So number one, it's very important to us to analyze, and it's something we want to stand up. In the same way that Razor's Edge switch to Sippy meant that the technology operations got disrupted, potentially for the better because they can be improved. Human operations also got disrupted. So something we are folding back into our system, something we're bringing back into the closet is how we do personal touches. And that's both at the you just gave us $150 level to let's talk about making a maximum donation level. The other thing I will say is that we want to be building personal relationships no matter what. Those are really enriched when we can be very specific. A major donor doesn't want to hear us say, hey, will you give us 10 grand? Not that you're suggesting that in any way, but just as inspiration for everyone here, especially if you're on a committee or especially if you have ideas around political impact, is major donors want to hear why we are a rolling stone, or we have momentum, why there's energy, why there's enthusiasm, where we're growing, but they also want to know what we're going to do with their money. And the more specific you can get about our products, that's going to be better. So good news, there's a bunch of stuff in the works, some of which we can get into today, some of which we can't. That's going to attract major donors. But I would just say, don't rely just on staff to do this, because if everyone's participating in it, we're going to have so much more impact. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I want to make sure it is something where we're
yes, and in summary,
considering
we're not doing enough of it, and we need to get back to doing more of it. Yes, Todd.
Just to reiterate Dustin's point, we want you guys to have enough. We want you guys to be very proactive and not wait on us. Okay, yeah. So every time you guys say you want to come back to us on an idea about how to go forward, like, no, you guys have the prerogative to go and raise money. In the situation we are financially, it would be my suggestion that every 4 days something is happening, whether that is a small subset of the, of the party is getting a direct mail, a small subset's getting text because we know that they react to those, or the entire party's getting an email, or X number of people are getting a phone call over the next 4 days. Like, there should be kind of a 4-day marketing plan from here on out, and you should not be waiting for us to do that now. If you're going to do a ballot access thing like we talked about in the committee the other night, and you need to have a focus for the email, that's fine. Reach out to the people, on the ballot access committee and say, we're going to do an email on the 13th. What is the focus? We give it to you. You guys run. Or we say, we don't know, and you guys run. You know what I mean? But I just want to make it clear, like, waiting for the next meeting or waiting for a next meeting or whatnot. That's not the idea. Like, every 4 days is what I want kind of everyone to be thinking about.
So here's something I'd love to say. So first of all, thank you. Everyone here would love the ability to be more agile. We would just love to be off to the races. I do think, though, we have to have some conversations about jurisdiction, right? There's only so much lipstick you can put in a pig to say, we are raising money for candidate support, right? In fact, I'll just pull this back up to kind of show 2 examples of how some things are going. Ballot access, we've been waiting for a report, and that's not to suggest that that's correct. Just want to say that's where we're at. I think we're going to get some updates today, that we wanted to wait for that and make sure that we were proceeding so that we weren't misphrasing that. A bit of that is because the people we've got on staff are maybe less familiar with ballot access than our esteemed members of the committee. Candidates work. We have a great vision there. We really want to be doubling down on the vertical of sheriffs this next 2 years. So we went ahead, we did a sheriff email, and we got a $1,500 donation out of that, right? So it was still high level, but we were able to proceed without coordinating or waiting on the candidate support committee. And I'm pleased to say I've had some great conversations with them so far. We're going to hear more about their stuff today, which helps us be concrete. I hope this doesn't sound as an excuse that, we can't proceed without hearing from committees. I do want to push though all of us to so that we're all aligned on the wavelength of how aggressively staff is driving decisions versus how much committees are driving decisions. We should all just soul search, find what our goal is there for each committee. It might be different per department, and then we can go there. Similarly though, sometimes we rely on committees to deliver the work, right? So we don't want to promise something that a committee can't deliver on. That would not be great. We wouldn't appreciate it the other way around. So that's just something we can talk about in Miguel's session around collaboration. So hopefully that's really clear. Thank you though for the charter and the enthusiasm. If anyone here feels differently or if everyone agrees with Todd, that's helpful for us to hear from you so we appropriately be aggressive or passive with the vision of the products. With that, Drew and Andy have not spoken yet, so I want to quickly get to their portions of the speech. And ironically, almost everything we're talking about today just fits into the end of the conversation. Why don't we take one last question and vote?
I just have a suggestion, logistics suggestion. Maybe since when lunch gets here, we have 90 minutes in the agenda for a lunch break. It's not a business day. None of us are going to have major phone calls to return or anything like that. Would it be appropriate to consider shortening that and maybe having a half hour where we just eat and converse a bit and then get back to business?
Or a working lunch.
I don't know what the form is.
And we have one gentleman who wanted to speak also.
Yeah, I would say that for membership to be able to hear if we're all eating and so forth during a working lunch, it's not conducive to the membership who will want to be able to hear this as well.
And some of us do have to return some phone calls.
Okay, I'm not saying no break, but maybe not 90 minutes, yeah.
We will do whatever you all want. I want to make sure we get these two guys to speak. They're part of this, so.
I would like.
Yeah.
Can I cut in? Where are we on lunch? Are they still?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying.
They said they were about to bring it in. I was gonna give them till 12:20 to go check it. Like 10 minutes ago, they said they were about to bring it in. So.
Yeah, Angela just texted me and asked if it's here.
It's not here. Should we stand at ease and wait?
Why don't we hear from the colleagues? We're doing nothing else.
Yeah.
Until
lunch comes
Let's
around.
Let's get it through, and then we can make a game time decision. We can
Is it in?
be agile. Don't call it.
One second.
Is it in order for me to make a motion to break for lunch but return at 1:30, which is less than 90 minutes on the agenda? Am I able to make that motion?
Why would we do that when we're not even having lunch yet? We have 10 minutes before lunch gets here. We can hear from Drew. And we'll get done with it.
Right.
Okay, we are in a really parliamentary weird position of this. It's actually at the point where we would extend time.
We are out of time.
Right, but there's a lot of talk. I think people are itching for a break. I actually think it's going to be up to Mr. Vice Chair since he's chairing right now. But just remind everyone, Mr. Watkins is in charge now. Kind of let him direct this.
Time to hear from that guy for 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so there's a motion to extend time for how long?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Is there a second? Second. All right. Any discussion? No objection?
Start talking.
Yep.
Let's go.
All right, so going off of what Lainey talked about, one of our biggest, you guys all hear me?
Tilt it up.
All right. Okay. One of the biggest takeaways that we've had this quarter, as far as fundraising is concerned, has come out of our email appeal process. So one of the really cool things that City CRM has allowed us to do, and something that we've been working on perfecting, is targeting our entire subscriber list based on their interests that they've given us, based on past giving. One of the biggest things for those of you that know, when you join, you can select your top 3 issues. Now, when you renew your membership, that field is cleared. Now, if you get some sort of renewal email and we put the sort of auto-populate on that source code that you're clicking into, your name's going to be auto-populated, your email, your phone number, you can update those. But the top 3 issues field, that's clear, and you can make 3 brand new selections, and in your record, it will update your selections. We're using that a lot based on the content of our email appeals. One example, which we'll start out with the bad news. One example of this was an economy email that we sent out last month around Pizza Day. So we decided to take a look at the effects of inflation on the dollar slice of pizza. since the inception of the Federal Reserve. It was a really fun piece. Matthew Hudson did a phenomenal job with a really cool graphic on it. And we sent it to our economy people list, I think about a little over 6,000 people. Nothing. Got shut out. Now, what can we take from that? And as a part of the wider conversation, what we've seen, as Lainey mentioned, and as I really want to hammer home with, specifically from our email appeals, is the more direct ask, the more concrete ask that we can provide people, the more likely it is we're going to see some really good returns. I have some of our best performing appeals so far this year. We have the Rage Against the War Machine Support Our Efforts email. We have our Run for Sheriff email, which, like Lady mentioned, was that was a candidate support piece that we put a really big effort. The messaging wise, it was centered around criminal justice, but we really hammered home, like, if you want to help change this, sign up, run for office. And that piece did really well as far as financially. Our year in review, which Lainey and a ton of other people put a lot of time into, the email appeal for that did really well, and I think that was generally well received. 2 more Rage Against the War Machine emails, specifically focusing on the speakers and then also on the list of demands. Those did really well. The last thing I did want to mention as far as the positives with emails, we had started doing what we're calling failed recovery. And so Civi gives us the opportunity to run a simple query of folks that have had a failed donation in a certain window of time. So we just did our second one. Combined, the 2 emails have had a little over 500 recipients. We've brought back in $300 worth of donations that had failed. The really important part of that is $130 per month, or $130 of that 300 is monthly recurring contributions. So I think this is going to be kind of like a 2-pronged approach, or this is going to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, if birds are real.
They're not.
We have a real opportunity here to not only address our renewal issue, but also to turn that into a positive with our rising monthly recurring contributions. So a lot of this, I think, is, I don't want to take credit for all of this. Luke Troxel, our new fundraising director, has come in and really established a really good working relationship with the rest of the team. I know it was mentioned earlier about the frequency of appeals. Ever since Luke came in, we've been filling our appeals spreadsheet or plan out a month in advance. So we sat down, I think the last week of January, we filled February out. Not that those can't change, not that we can't be agile and address more pressing issues as they come up, but just to have that skeleton in works so that we can write those ahead of time, get them clear, has been a really big help in that process, and I look forward to that continuing. The other major thing that I wanted to talk about, which is on the screen, is project management and how that has kind of increased our ability to see across the team and also improve our personal productivity. So we have adapted as a staff the practice of Scrum. We've been using Azure DevOps as the main tool to facilitate this. Basically, it's a project management software that allows us to do a lot of things well. Between working together and coordination on projects to stack ranking projects based on not only like their effect that they're going to have on the organization, but also the timeliness of something. It allows us to really be able to work together as a cohesive unit. Each of us in our own roles has their own kind of priority rank of stuff that we want to get done, projects that need to get done in a certain time frame. What ADO and the process of Scrum has allowed us to do is look at all of those individual rankings, synthesize it into one cohesive team unit, and not just act on it out of that kind of direction, but also it has raised our level of accountability to each other. The Scrum process is essentially what we're calling our recurring meeting process. So we have daily stand-ups at the end of the day where we talk about what we did that day, what we're planning to do tomorrow. We operate in 2-week cycles referred to as sprints. And so we have sprint planning where we all come together, we bring our projects to the table, and that's kind of where that ranking system is put in place so that we can move forward. Same thing with mid-sprint planning, that's where we come together, reassess where we are on these projects. And it has really helped, and I'll give a personal example. It was about a month ago, I had a lot on my plate, a bunch of emails that we were trying to get through. Staff member, I told, I keep a detailed list every single day for these stand-ups to make sure I'm, as thorough as possible. Read through my list of what I did, what I had going for tomorrow. Staff member said, hey, my plate, like what is on my plate in ADO, the stuff that I'm assigned to is low. I can help you with this project. I have time to give to this project. Let's work together and get this project off of your plate. It's little stuff like that it has that effect. It gives us the ability to plan better. It gives us an ability to reflect better. And it gives us a really, really big advantage as far as working together as a cohesive unit. So I know Andy Bukovich is phenomenal, and Laney too, as far as Scrum and ADO. I had no knowledge of this when it was brought forth, and they've both done a phenomenal job getting me in a position where I can effectively help our team coordinate as the Scrum Master and start to lead some of these meetings. I'm not great at it yet, but I hope to continue to develop with the help of these two. And Andy has a lot more stuff that he can add on top as far as the benefits of Scrum and ADO. But realistically, I think it's been one of anything positive that you're seeing coming out of staff right now, I think can largely be attributed to this new process, because it really has gotten us, firing on all cylinders. Yeah, I was gonna say we probably need time.
Yeah, and quick update of Jeff from Angela, the food is ready out at the restaurant, so we can either break here between Drew and Angela, continue whatever the body wants, so. Your progress since we came on in Reno has been phenomenal, and thank you. You have done an awesome job.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Try to move food choice so restaurant, maybe people bring back parenting, but I think everyone needs some mental downtime.
Yes. What time would we like to reconvene?
1:30.
1:30. That would be
Only
an
1
hour.
hour. Only 1 hour.
Correct. Yeah, I agree.
Madam Chair, can I make a motion to give 10 to 15 minutes to Mr. Gurry from the state of New Mexico about the Take Human Action Tour while we're having lunch?
I don't think it needs a motion, because we already have a motion on the table, but I'm gonna say yes.
Show up at the restaurant.
Okay, any objections, breaking for lunch and reconvening at 1:30?
Is everyone planning on bringing the food back in here?
Yeah.
And then we can hear from Mr. Gurry while we're sitting here.
I'm fine with that.
Great.
Okay.
I'm gonna be first. Watch my
Oh, that's
So we don't go over that.
I want you to know that.
We'll restart the stream for lunch, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, when we go, yeah.
So it should take 25. Yeah.
It's all right. You're out of the tree.
I think it's a little good.
This is my one.
Give everybody a chance to get back to lunch.
Great. I wish I had cameras on.
Yeah.
No, this is not a formal presentation.
Yeah.
Just have the website. Just talk to the spirit. I'll introduce that. Yeah, found a bridge. Great things happen to people. Right. Okay.